Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America, brought to you by Accuracy in Academia. I am your host, Don Irvine, joined by my co-host, as always, Brian McNichol.
Hello, deplorables, dregs, despicables, chumps, Neanderthals, semi-fascists, dictators, and dog-faced pony soldiers.
All right, that's right. The last time we spoke, was that before Thanksgiving?
I believe so. Christo-fascist. We need to be getting that one in there too.
What's this? Christo-fascist?
Christo-fascist.
All right. You better tell me where that one came from. I haven't been watching.
That's because we're Christians.
Okay.
So there's no more Christian. You're now a Christo-fascist.
It's like
unless you're like a Pope, leftist, whatever.
I don't know. What can I say? All right. Playing any golf?
Very little golf because it's basketball season and the weather has not been good. And so I've been out there a little bit. I got to play over Thanksgiving, but not much since.
Well, you love basketball. This is a cycle for you anyway, right?
Yeah, and that's a lot of basketball this time of year. So with my daughter playing and my son, I'm going to coach my son's team. That's about to start up, and I have these 3 other teams. So I'm pretty much at a game most of the time. And the thing that's going on is I keep making the kids sick, and then they make me sick, and we're missing vast amounts of players because of sickness. It's really there's a big bug going around.
Yeah, and you're right about that because I mean my wife has been kind of suffering for a couple of weeks, it seems, where she just can't seem to get rid of whatever it is. I think I had a little bit of it or whatever, but I think, that must really kind of decimate the teams because especially with young people, I mean, that stuff travels and just circulates and whatever. It's
right. And in my, so like when I coach AAU, I generally have 14 people on the team, right? Because they're off doing other stuff, and you end up with 9 or 10, and then you got a good number for the game, right? But in the winter, the county league and everything, they let you have 10 players, and you can't have any more. So, I have this one girl, she's been sick for 2 weeks, and I talked to her mom yesterday, and she's still very sick. She is not close to being ready to play. So, and she just can't shake it, and it's bad. It's not, it's not marginal. She's not a wimp. She'd be there if she could. But
and they miss school as a result of that
too,
probably, right? Yeah. So
that's
right. That doesn't help them at all.
It's like the old Gaithersburg days when I used to come up there and do this with you. I got my cough drops. Lori left me 2 because she's like, it's an hour-long show and you might not make it.
Yeah, as many cough drops as my wife has gone through. The last time Costco had them on sale, I'm like, I didn't know she had bought some of those things. And then I went and I bought some of those things. She goes, well, I just bought some of those. I was like, yeah, but it's like Kleenex. You go through them and next thing you know, you don't have any. So let's go ahead and have plenty.
That's right.
being whatever that is, just play it safe, be cautious. You can never have too much of that kind of stuff because you'll need it at some point in time. Right?
That's right. It doesn't go bad,
Right.
Cough drop is a cough drop. 2 years from now, it's still a cough drop. I'm
not sure what it tastes like in 10 years down the road, but hey.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this though, because Costco sells these huge things of Ricola, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe you went through the same thing when you were a kid too, but when I was a kid, I mean, we'd go to like the People's Drug, the precursor of CVS or Dart Drug, some of the old drugstores there, or Giant Food or whatever. And we were picking up those Vicks drops or whatever, right?
Right.
I was always after the cherry ones and stuff like that, but they tasted okay. I'm not. Sometimes they kind of stung, where these are much more
where you were.
Soothing lozenges or whatever. But there seems to be an evolution because I don't see those same type of old style cough drops like that anymore.
No, me either.
All right. So news.
Lots of it.
Yeah, there's plenty of it. I did, I threw this thing about Evan Gershkowitz up here for up to day 252 because the Wall Street Journal posted it was at day 250 a couple of days ago. And I think it was just kind of a constant reminder of what's going on there. This poor guy, I mean, 252 days, and there's really not a lot of attention being paid to this at all. And I think the Russians just, turned down another appeal or whatever. They refused to release him. What's the deal here? I mean, why is this poor guy being held for so long? What are the Russians? Is this still part of the retribution for our involvement in Ukraine?
Yeah, I mean, that's what he was there reporting on, right? And it's just showing us the limits of our power. Basically, it's something you can do to a weak president, and without repercussions, it sort of puts you a leg up on him and so forth. What a way to treat somebody. Just like to be a pawn in an exercise like that. I hope we don't. The U.S. does not do this to people. I don't think we do. And you never know these days, but I hope we don't.
In your opinion, though, I mean, has there been enough support or outrage or whatever you want, from other fellow journalists about this, or have they just not really paid? They have just kind of shoved this to the side. I just don't hear enough about it. If it wasn't for the Wall Street Journal, I'm not sure if I'd be hearing about this much at all.
No, the Post wrote about it a little early. The Post kind of kept up with it, and they have a house ad they run from time to time with just what you see. You don't see a lot of house ads this time of year because people buy the ads, right?
Yeah.
But they do have a house ad they run from time to time about it.
Okay. All right. I was just kind of curious about that. So we had that brief ceasefire with Israel and Hamas. Israel has gone back there. But they're still holding. The number I heard the other day is that Hamas still has 137 hostages, right?
Yeah.
So Israel still needs to find a way to get those guys out. But I know we've talked
about those hostages now. So a lot of what they have is women they have brutally raped and tortured and so forth, and they can't let them out because they can go out and say what they did. So they're trying to get out, figure out a way around that, without killing them and getting, people further enraged at them. But I mean, another thing, it's like, okay, you're fighting for your independence, but you went and raped and killed a bunch of people, with glee, right? You did mean, heinous things with glee, and you want people to say, oh, well, you're colonial and occupied and this and that and the other. And it's like, no, you forfeit that when you treat people like that. You don't get that consideration anymore.
Yeah,
No one cares about your geopolitical problem if that's the way you're going to try to handle it.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, you're right about this whole thing about they are kind of in that tricky situation because of the way they've treated, or we should say mistreated, these hostages, that the ones that have been released, we've been getting a glimpse of what's going on out there. Right. I mean, in terms of the tunnel infrastructure, we hear about all these things, these horrible things that are going on there. So, I mean, Hamas is like, well, we release more. They're going to talk more. They're going to expose our atrocities even more.
Right.
How desperate do you think Hamas is, though, to get more of their political, these prisoners? I feel, Israel has somewhat they're back against the wall with these hostages, and they're releasing, to me, high value hostages.
Right. People who will come back and try to do this again.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean,
and they're doing, and a lot of it is pressure from Biden administration, and Biden wants out of this because he has this. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, on espionage. Yeah, that's right. They love because it's leverage. They're just going to use it to buy something. But I mean, the Biden administration's game plan here is to pressure Israel to stop fighting back, right? To end the fighting back. You've done enough score settling, just let it go, right? And it's like, I think that this is a time to once and for all make this problem go away, right? I want, because you think about after Nazi Germany, after World War II, we and the Israelis and others, right? We held everybody responsible that we could find, and we punished that country to the point that Germany doesn't want to do anything like that ever again, because It's like we cannot get like what happened to Dresden and so forth ever again. Okay, so yeah, it was unfortunate what happened to Dresden, right? It was unfortunate to the people of Dresden, but Israel, but no one else has had to endure a Third Reich since World War II because of that, right? So my thing is like, if you want this to stop, you got to stop it. You've got to go find the people responsible and punish them, to the maximum extent. And, if you didn't want innocence in the way of your thing, right? Tell them to follow the evacuation orders when they come and don't start trouble in the first place, right? They brought this all on themselves. They have no one to blame but themselves.
Yeah, Hamas initiated this whole thing with this attack, and yet but they're trying to paint this as like, Israel is killing all these innocent citizens, and so Israel's in the wrong.
Yeah, where do you get those casualties? They keep telling you it's 70% women and kids. Like, really? How do you know? Who told you that? The Gaza Ministry of Health, right? Where are you getting those figures? You're just making stuff up. You have no idea how many people are killed, how many were women or kids, right? You're parroting propaganda. Okay. The other thing is, I don't know if you saw this. You seen this hearing yesterday? They had the presidents of MIT, Penn, and Harvard, right? Before there was a hearing on anti-Semitism, right? And they said, okay, Elaine Stefanik, who asked the best questions of anyone in Congress, we should find out who writes her questions for her. And if it's her herself, then she needs a promotion. And whoever's doing it for her needs to be working for the next Republican president, right? Because she's got this down pat. And she said, okay, is what's going on in your campus violating harassment or bullying codes, right, that you have? And they're like, well, it's in context. You got to take it in context, right? And like none of them could just say, no, this is terrible. The MIT lady tried to math her way out of it, right? She says, well, if this equals this and that equals that, and it's like, okay, just tell me, is it against the rules that they're harassing these people like this? Yes or no? And none of them could just say, yeah, that's against the rules. We don't like that. We don't want that. That's illegal on our campus, right? So the idea that they cannot speak with any more clarity than that, and then Mike Johnson had some guy up later in the day, a Jewish kid from Penn. And he's like, I can't even go out of my dorm. He's a big old dude, too. And he's like, I can't even go out of my dorm because, there's people right out on the street shouting at me, get out of here, Jew, and die, Jew, and all this kind of stuff. I mean, this is crystal knot stuff, right? And what's going on in America, it's going on Joe Biden's watch. There's certainly, his Justice Department certainly isn't doing anything about it, even though it's led by a Jew, right? They are coming down on the wrong side of this. They're coming down on the, there's two sides and we got to balance. And like, no, there's not two sides. It's not two sides to anti-Semitism, right? We've learned that before. We tried to play this game before. We lost them. We tried again. We'll lose again. But what the Democrats are starting to realize is it's going to cost them everything. Okay, they can back their crazy. It's like there's thing in the New York Times. They're talking about all the polling. They're like, one of the things that happened to the Democrats is they've become a party of white, educated, highly educated people. Okay, so they are now concerned with gender policy and they're on the side of the Palestinians and all this kind of. They're in a bunch of places that are so far out of the mainstream American political thought that they cannot get back. They can't deny it. There's a fight within the party. You have John Fetterman over there sounding like like a Republican. I mean, he's putting out these things saying like I've got all the Israel people's pictures on my wall in my office, and you guys are nuts. This is not no two-sided story. These people were brutally attacked. I mean, he's starting to strike me like Arlen Specter's a bad comparison, right, on a few levels, but like that's sort of the model in Pennsylvania. Democrats who vote like Republicans, Republicans who vote like Democrats, right? It really is what they're really for in Pennsylvania. What seems to me over the years, just seeing what they have elected over the years, is people who are very, very close to the center of the political universe, right? They really do try to see how close to the center they can be. And that's why, like, you get a guy like Mastriani, right? Very good conservative credentials got blown out because he's seen too far from, Shapiro seems like a regular old Democrat, not a nutbag. Mastriani seemed like not walking the center lane. So, I mean, I think it's kind of a deal. Yeah, right. That's right. Why are we limiting Israel? Why don't let Israel finish the job, and once and for all? Because this is a menace that's going to have to be dealt with, right? It's going to have to be eradicated, right? And we can do it now, or we can wait and do it, and it costs a little more money, but it's got to happen.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we're having this debate in America. We're having this debate in the halls, of Congress, in essence, about aid to Israel and support to Israel and all these things, and yet it's basically like, what's wrong with these people? Is it not crystal clear who the bad guy is in this, who the aggressor was in this? And
Right.
yet, you mentioned this whole, charade, this ridiculous thing about these university presidents. I don't know if you read Sage Steele's the tweets or X posts or whatever, but it's Sage Steele. It's been amazing. She, ever separating from ESPN is like the most liberating experience. I mean, I think we all knew, some of the other things that happened to her while she was at ESPN, that where she stood on issues, and now she's free of that, and she is expressing those fully. And her comment about these university presidents was just like, if any, if any corporation, CEO had done what they did, they'd be toast. They'd be out. They would not last. But it's academia, right?
Yeah.
They don't get rid of these people very easily, and there's still a lot of support for these these idiots that are running these elite institutions. And we've seen donors, a lot of Jewish donors to a lot of these schools pull out, say, we're not doing this anymore. I mean, there needs to be a wholesale, boycott of these, and because money will talk. I mean, it'll squeeze the board of trustees and whatever, and start maybe getting to think that they need new leadership in there. But you're right about how they were. They could not. And I think Sage Steele said the same thing. Like, they couldn't give a simple yes or no answer. It was this, as you said, this context. They were trying to explain it away and trying to make it like, okay, I'm now this is how it is. Let's move on. It's like, no, give Elise Stefanik credit for pushing this.
That's right. And other people too. And, I guess you've seen Bill Ackman has put out another thing. First of all, I want to say this about Sage Steele. So one time years ago, I guess when she was NBC, what is now NBC Sports Washington, I had to go. They were in the Discovery building there in Silver Spring.
Oh, yeah. By the Metro.
I had to go there and deal with somebody over some little matter. And I had MK with me, which MK was about 4 years old. And I parked her at the secretary, and I said, I need to go to the restroom. Can she sit in a chair here for 5 minutes? Let me walk there and come back. Sure. I come back, and she is sitting on this bench with Sage Steele, and they are just yakking like old friends, right? And I'm like, that's pretty cool. She just saw this little girl, and she sat down, and MK will talk to anybody, right? So she's just, her and Sage Steele are just chopping it up right there in the thing. So I've always kind of had anybody that loves my kids, I'm all over it, right? Yeah. So they're not. There's no moral equivalence here. There's no this side, that side here, right? This is people did a horrible thing, and they should be punished. They should be rendered to the point that they cannot do it again. I mean, that's for the good of everybody. There's a lot less death if you get rid of the current band of thugs, right? Because this is thuggery. I mean, it's not religion. It's not independence. It's not colonialism. It's racist thuggery and nothing else.
Yeah. I mean, Wall Street Journal had done, I think they wrote an article about some of these student protesters, and they talked to them. And it was so clear, from the interviews that they conducted, that that these young kids, these malleable minds, they had swallowed the Hamas line, hook, line, and sinker. And it was all, pro-Palestine, that's good, Israel bad in this. And it's like, do you not, did you totally ignoring what happened? How many people they came in and they slaughtered these innocents at a festival, at a concert. They did this, and you're basically saying that didn't happen. In essence, they're discounting that, and they're going on, and their only focus now is what Hamas says about how many people, civilians have been killed in Gaza and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, where there's context lacking there too,
Right. That's like Mehdi Hassan. I guess he lost his show, and now he's trying to get completely kicked off the network because he won't quit. Right. I mean, he's just a straight up, Jews are animals, and they're beneath us, and they should be eradicated. He's a complete, hardcore Jew hating Muslim, and it's getting exposed, and he's like, now he's like, where's all the concern for Islamophobia?
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta have some perspective here.
Here's a long comment from Bob, but worth it.
Yeah, you're doing the Lord's work there, my friend. Yeah, and in New York University, that's been a hotbed of Hamas, pro-Hamas protests and so forth. The elite colleges of the U.S. have been badly exposed in this, right? The hatreds and the racism and the casual dismissal of other people's right to live has been, really brought to the fore in this. It's really interesting to see.
There's another comment we have.
That's right. That's right. That's what I was saying. That's what I'm saying. They've become a party of elites, and the people. And it's like there's this is thing in the New York Times, I believe today, written by Thomas Edsel, who's sort of their polling coordinator, has been for a long time, and he talks about all the things that Democrats were always known as the party that that will look out for the working person, right? And their advantage on which party looks out for the working person the most has been as high as 30 points, right? 29, I think maybe. And but now it's down to 2. I mean, that's a disaster for them. The margins, they keep, someone put out the other day, it's like, 60% of or 54% of people under 30 say they will vote for Biden. Like, it's a huge win for Biden. It's like if 54% of people under 30 vote for Biden, he will get demolished in this election, right? Do a little math. It's usually 80% or 90% are voting for the Democrat. Now you're not going to have that. There's the heart of the party is gone, right? Working class people, people without a college degree, people of color, right, are disappearing in just rapidly. This by the day, it's being destroyed by these people who they don't have any respect for what put the party where it was. Right, they're in terrible shape, and that's why you're seeing all the, Trump is a dictator stuff come out, because they're looking at polling and they're saying, as things stand now, we cannot win.
Yeah, I mean, we know that the Democrats. I mean, we have Biden, lunch bucket Joe. It's about a blue collar, appeal. They've had, they've always had the unions, really behind their back, and all of these types of things. But right, I mean, they're losing the Hispanic vote, they're losing the black vote, and they are losing a lot of the just that blue collar, working class people, because as we've talked about on this program time and time again, since Biden took office, he really doesn't have, to me, his own strategy or anything like this. He's turned everything over to these far leftist kooks and a lot of basically elitists, right? Kind of the elite left, and they are dictating the policy, and so they go along with this. And in essence, what they've done is that they are destroying the Democrat voter base.
That's right.
I don't think that they realized that going in at the beginning, but how many times have we talked about kind of the desperation of the Biden administration as I think they'd look towards, what's happening in the future in the elections, and what they see is, I think they're duly worried about, whether or not they're going to win, re-election, do whatever win re-election in 2024. So that, now we're seeing they keep trying to shove even more programs down the pipeline to make things worse.
That's right. They're trying to get programmatic now. They can't really pass any legislation.
You need some water.
They can't pass legislation. They can't, now the speaker has said, don't close the border. We're not going to give any more money to Ukraine. That seems a common sense thing that 80% of America could get behind. They refuse to even discuss it with him. They got a problem. It's not going to get better either. I think people can say, well, things could change. And they could. The trend lines are all in the same direction.
Yeah. There's another short comment here from Bob.
That's right. I'm trying to think it's the most expensive school in the nation, either that or GW.
Yeah, and you had mentioned but just about, kind of, what's happening in academia. The other thing that's really kind of gotten to me is just how it's trickled down into the K through 12 education, particularly the high schools, because we're seeing the same thing we've seen before with these volatile situations, is that the schools, and I'm looking at Montgomery County because I live here, how they basically roll over again when students say, well, we're going to have a walkout, the thing that still burns me, my old high school, Northwood High School, when I saw that Facebook post from a few weeks ago where this woman says, they were going to have a walkout during the 7th period and everybody to wear pro-Palestine colors. It's like, excuse me, because we talked about that, right? Because Northwood High School, located right in the heart of one of the heaviest Jewish communities going on there. And now they've had 2 teachers in Montgomery County educators suspended for making these anti-Semitic, pro-Palestinian remarks on social media. It's like, hello. You put them on leave, but they'll just find another, if they don't return to the classroom or something like that, where are they going to go? The bureaucracy, like we've talked about before in Montgomery County, which is just stuffed with all these people. They will, they'll hide them, right? They won't fire these people.
They'll just hide them. They'll find something they can do. Probably easier job too.
Yeah, they'll just
possibly for more money.
Yeah, they'll just stick them on some job at on Hungerford Drive at the headquarters, right? Yeah, that's right. That's right, and probably pay them more money. Here's more comments. Our favorite fans are big on commenting today.
That's right. He's right about that. So yeah, where are the Blue Dogs? It really hurt their party because there's no, I guess, Fetterman's a Blue Dog. He may be the only one.
Well, maybe Fetterman is part of a revival of some Blue Dog type of thing.
Yeah, I really do think he's kind of the avatar, because here's a guy he won, while recovering from a stroke, which I handed to him, and his talking a language, Israel's an 80-20 issue in America. So just remember that one of the 2 major parties is willfully flying into the wind of an 80-20 issue. Right now, why are they doing that? Who are how did they get on a track like that? And my thing is they're run by radicals, right? They're run by people who never worked for a living and have no idea what a reality is like.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, with this talk about Blue Dog Democrats too, it's just that how they were a pretty good force for a long period of time, and they've pretty much gone, they're extinct for the most part. Remember, Heath Shuler in Congress was one of the last one of those kind of things like that. But the Democrats,
the home district in Louisiana was represented by Blue Dogs for decades.
Yeah,
now it's represented by the Speaker of the House.
Yeah. So did the Democrats, make a mistake by by basically saying that, their decision really is to lurch really far to the left, and they lost that blue dog, kind of mix that they had in there. And so, the South, for the most part, is largely Republican now, right? I mean, there used to be a lot of Democrats represented,
Yeah.
and the only way they get representation in large parts of the South are when they gerrymander the districts in their favor,
Right.
all that kind of stuff. So it's amazing to see that change. I think when I was younger, I never imagined that I'd see the changes
I
that
am
we
going
have
for the
in this.
water. I'll come right
Yeah.
back.
All right. They have in the South. I learned when I get a tickle on my throat, I now start to keep the water close by because we're at the time of year where this kind of stuff happens. So yeah, let's hope the water helps Brian get over this cough. But yeah, as all you guys have been pointing out, John and Bob, and in particular, this is just crazy. The Democrat Party has lurched, to me, way too far to the left. They thought they had this whole kind of, I don't know, Bernie Sanders, that the AOC, the squad type of thing was the way to win elections. That was going to be their future. But I think we've seen under the Biden administration, really what happens is that when you go ahead and you basically yes to the left and the far left, that you now start to pull yourself away from mainstream America. I mean, there are still good people in the Democrat Party, but they don't want to be that far left. They don't agree with the squad. They don't agree with Bernie Sanders. And they are seeing where the direction of this country is not going in the right direction, and it's because the way the Biden administration has run things. Look at the people that they've appointed and how they've just said, "Go with it. Let's go ahead and have all these programs." For like this whole green energy thing, right? How much money have they been pouring into green energy? It's like we don't want internal combustion engine cars by 2030 or 2035. Set these standards. Let California do it. Let these other states do it. And this is coming back to bite them big time now.
Right.
I mean,
That's another example of being run by elitists. They made a decision to treat white people as a minority, to be a block voting minority, like all the others, and we'll line up against them, right? Because we're on the side of the underdog and all this stuff, right? Their usual underdog plea that they make. It has no bearing to reality, but that's what they say, right? Well, you're to a point where we're still at like 70% white country, right? This idea that like it's about to change. I think the first presidential election that will be majority non-white will be either 2056 or 2060. Right? We're not that close to that. So right now, you're doing things that are turning off a workable thing. Like I saw somebody on Facebook this morning is like, show me Trump's path to 270. I'm like, well, right now, he leads in every battleground state and would win the popular vote.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Lloyd Teixeira has in this morning's Washington Post a piece saying that if the election is held today, there's no chance that Biden would win.
Yeah,
right?
no, I think I would agree with that. I mean, I listen to that 538 Politics podcast, and a lot of it is, they do a lot of polling stuff they report on, and the polls are not good for Biden, and it's got to be hard. It's got to be hard for those guys because they're all liberals on that podcast, and how they trying to, you can only do so much with the numbers to try to interpret them to try to make them somewhat favorable to Biden, but it really doesn't work very much at all. In the Senate.
They're that's right. Yeah. They basically sacrificed Disney on the altar of political correctness.
Yeah.
You basically have ruined the brand. And I think I think Bob Iger now realizes that, and his plan to save it is to, we're not in the ideology business anymore. We're in the fun and dreams business.
He seems to at least stabilize things for now. So they're doing a little bit better in that sense. But this whole idea of what the Democrats have done. I mean, I understand this whole notion, this whole idea that we will wind up at some point in time, as you're saying, majority, minority type of thing like that. But we're not there yet. And yet the Democrats basically are saying our policies are basically predicated on this whole idea of majority and minority. But
anti-whiteness.
But if you're not there yet, I mean, if you still have a majority white voters kind of thing like this, is that hello? You're totally ignoring them, and that's why it's turning these people off. I mean, all those like we said, all those voting blocks that they had solidly in their favor, they're losing them. They're melting away and moving away from the Democrats. And I know that there people like that are doing 538 and stuff like that. They're trying to find people to talk about the economy and how the economy's not as Biden's done a better job on the economy than the polls are saying. But you can't. I mean, it's just that lipstick on a pig type of thing to me. It's just no. You quit playing with those numbers, because as we have talked about time and time again, we see these numbers. Inflation is cooling. Okay, inflation is slowing down, but once again, every time you compare a price to 2021 when Biden took office, it's up by a lot. And every time the White House talks about gas prices, I'd want to pull my hair out. It's like, oh, gas prices are, now they're only down to like $3.30 a gallon. This is great.
It was $2. That's a huge difference.
Yeah, no, they're still 30-40% higher or whatever it is.
$15 more a fill up than I mean, I buy a whole tank at a time.
Yeah,
because I'm wildly rich. But so when people say you tell them how many pennies it is, it's like, to me, it's like it's $15 less. It's $15 more that we're paying now than we were then. Did you see there was a piece in Axios either today or yesterday said that they have dropped the term Bidenomics. The Biden administration has ordered no one to say that anymore because it was getting them killed in the polls. People are like, yeah, here's Bidenomics. We went from 6,000 more per household of income to 6,000 less. I mean, he basically has taken away all the gains of the Trump years because of their economic policies. And, there's no blaming that on Trump. You did it. They try to blame it on, well, the president doesn't determine prices. Like, if Trump was the president, then the president would be determining prices, right? If they could blame it on Trump, they would, right? They're trying to blame the energy prices on Trump. No, it's your policies. You did it.
Yeah. No, I mean,
you're going to be held responsible.
Yeah. I think when they made a decision, the campaign, to think that they were touting Bidenomics, because how many times did we hear Bidenomics? It was like everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And but the really the immediate reaction was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
It's like there are some people that are making more money than they were a few years ago, but they also have higher expenses than they had a few years ago. So they're still kind of treading water in a lot of cases. And when you look at the things that you need to, if you want to buy bread, milk, and eggs, those some of the basics of a household food budget, they're still way up from where they were. When you put the numbers to the test, it doesn't add up. Bidenomics is a disaster.
Right.
And so that's maybe one of the smartest things they've done recently is just if they're going to get rid of it, because you're getting killed on that. It was great for the Republicans, because Republicans, they can seize on that and says,
tee off on it every day.
Yeah, here's an example of Bidenomics. We got this. We got a comment from Charlton here.
Yeah, she deflects it. She defends these people, and they all say it's like, well, I mean, you got to take these things in context. It's like there's no context here. We all get the context. You're talking to us like we're children.
Yeah, well, I mean, so I'm assuming here that you know, he's trying to refer to Jayapal, right, and her
Well,
horrific comments about the Hamas raping the Israeli women, and it's like the Democrats can't even defend this, right?
yeah, even Dana Bash, she's like,
Yeah,
well, IDF is not raping the women,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and so it's like I don't understand. I can never understand these politicians when when they make these comments and then they then they're out there trying to defend these things, and their own party, a large part of their own party can't they can't support what's going on here like this. It's like what world are you in? What country are you in? It's like it's just mind boggling that you can go and say this and think that you've got the right position and that you try to defend it. And he's right. I mean, Karine Jean-Pierre, there's no love lost for us with her. She is a total idiot, right? I mean, she's just a disaster in that position. But Biden put her in there and he stuck with her, and she cannot. Even when she deflects, it's bad. I mean, there's nothing. I can't find any really redeeming value in anything that she really does. What does she do that's good for the administration? I don't understand.
Well, she has a laugh line, and she does, comic effect, comic relief, or whatever, I guess. But yeah, she's a problem for him. She's been a problem for him for a long time. The one before her was a problem too. She, never would give anybody a straight answer. It's like they can't give straight answers to stuff, right? And I think people realize you can't really answer like why do you think it's relatively okay for Hamas to do what it did in Israel. There's no answer to that, right? So it's always prevaricating in context and words like that. And now they've all decided that their only hope is to and if you read the New York Times thing I was talking about, they one guy, they said, well, there are some people still bullish on Democrats' chances here, and what they say is, if you just demonize Trump, right, you can just turn people against Trump, and that may be true, but I don't know about that this year, because if you look at it, people are they're seeing through a lot of these lies, and you also have percolating to the surface now a bunch of litigation about censorship, right? The government's caught censoring bad information about the Bidens. MRC has documented more than 700 cases of big tech firms censoring social media posts solely because they were critical of the Bidens. So, there's a new lawsuit today. Texas has joined with the Federalist and maybe Daily Wire or somebody that's suing them over censoring stuff. There's Missouri v. Biden, which is now before the Supreme Court. But when you talk to people on the left about this, largely they've never heard of these cases, right? You had the U.S. Department of Justice person on the Hill who would be in charge of taking the remedial action that the courts are quite likely to offer about Missouri v. Biden, who said, frankly, Congressman, I'm not familiar with that case. Now, how is the DOJ person in charge of that department that would have to address this not familiar with the case? Are you kidding me? Right?
Right. We just have breaking news here. Something just popped up, which is that Kevin McCarthy is going to resign at the end of the year from Congress.
Okay, that's a R plus about 6 or 7 district, right?
Yeah, I think he's still in a pretty good place there. So.
Yeah.
But and I don't think that's terribly unexpected. I mean, there had been rumors circulating that was likely to happen, and all of that. So yeah, I mean, and I don't think he would have resigned had he not felt that there would still be a Republican replacing him, because the margin is pretty thin right now.
Margin is getting pretty thin.
Yeah,
but they're taking on some key retirements too.
Yeah. I did want to talk also though about COP28, because we just love all the environmentalism that goes on in the Biden administration, and it's send Kamala over there to talk about things, which is a risky thing to send Kamala anywhere anyway. I mean, but probably no more risky than sending Biden out to talk on his own without a teleprompter or whatever. But when I saw this thing that she was we're going to give what $3 billion to climate aid for these poor countries, is like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? I mean, it's
the whole point of the whole green scam is wealth transfer, right? It's take money from rich people and give it to other people, right? That's the whole thing about it. Now, the people who actually get that money, they themselves are not the poor, right? But because they're used to scamming things for money. But it's a scam. The whole thing is a scam. There's even less evidence of global warming being a big crisis that we need to address now than there was 5 or 10 years ago, right? I should say there's more evidence that it's not the big crisis these people posit that it is. And so, yeah, and then they, I guess you saw it's the other ones that were trying to leave from Europe. There was a big snowstorm in Europe. The planes were all grounded and they couldn't get there. They showed up late because, their PJs couldn't take off from Munich because I guess there was like a 600-mile long, wide belt of snow that went across Europe and, buried Europe in snow, early snowstorm.
And every time
they come out the next day, they say, well, that only proves that there is global warming. I mean, more snow proves global warming. So does less snow. So there's more rain and less rain and more tornadoes and fewer tornadoes and hotter and colder and whatever. It all proves that there's global warming. Okay.
I mean, wouldn't, if they were really about saving the environment and they wanted to be this whole carbon neutral thing, and they want to talk about this, wouldn't they be better off just having a virtual COP28 and everything like that, right? Why it's the same thing for those people in Davos. It's like, all these people who rail against the environment and greenhouse gases and all this stuff, and that everybody needs an EV and gas powered cars are bad. But how many times have we seen them? They're flying their private jets and all this stuff. They're polluting the environment as such by doing all this. They could do it virtually, right? But no, they don't. They need to be with the hoi polloi. They need to rub shoulders and show, I am an important person and I know what I'm doing here.
I arrived in a private jet.
Right, I arrived.
You don't want to be some scumbag who flies commercial, right?
Right now, yeah, and and I want to know. I mean, I really want to see somebody really dig deeply into it. Maybe somebody has, and I just haven't really, and I haven't dug deeply into it enough myself. But there's $3 billion for these poorer countries, for this climate, all this climate aid and stuff like that. Exactly what are we going to see in the end? To me, the corruption in a lot of these countries is so high that it's going to wind up. The money goes to the governments. These politicians are going to rake a lot of that money off, and virtually nothing will get to whatever. Please show me a successful project that has been funded with our money in any of these countries, right? To me, it's never going to get to where it's supposed to be and serve that purpose. So we're wasting our money, but it sounds good, right? So we're trying to fight this. We're serious about doing this, but there's no kind of checks and balances. Does anybody actually go back and say, by the way, that $3 billion did all these wonderful things? When in essence, instead of, which is what they want, but rather than saying, oh, by the way, $3 billion, $2.9 billion wound up in the pockets of all the dictators or whatever.
Right, and it's you never see where it goes, and how would you know?
Right, exactly.
Right, that's right. And then it rubs out, all our, all our cutting of coal. We're cutting use of coal and won't permit coal power plants and all this stuff, and they're adding two a month over there.
Yeah, exactly. That was one of the problems for them, wasn't it? It's just like,
yeah, that's right.
It's that they were grousing about where it was being held.
Right, and the thing about this is like this regime is dying, right? It's not getting a lot of publicity yet, but you can see that like DEI departments are closing all over the country. Corporations are suspending their DEI commitments. The electric car mandates are in trouble. People are saying, Europe is in a terrible mess. Germany's trying to make some hard decisions now because they don't have enough energy because they outlawed the plentiful energy they have. It's things that can't keep happening won't keep happening. And that's what's going on with this, because people realize, global warming is not the threat that these crazy people told us it was. And the amelioration of it is, not working. And, we can't afford this stupidity any longer, basically.
Yeah, look, Angela Merkel, she put Germany in a box. She sacrificed their energy independence over all this nuclear, we can't do all this stuff, and yet we know it's a cheap, safe fuel, and instead of having this reliance on gas, from Russia and all these kind of other things, she sacrificed,
she can't get now because of Nord Stream, right?
Right. No, she totally screwed Germany, on this, and any problems, Germany's problems going forward in manufacturing and other issues where you need energy to to produce things. This is her fault. She just really kind of screwed her own country.
This is just an educated country, right? Whose democratically elected leadership did stuff that is extremely dumb, right? Because how did they get away with that? The information blackout, right?
Yeah.
That's the key to this is the free press element, right? That people can tell the other side and get it out, without it being squashed.
So the other thing too is I saw this on, I don't even know why it popped up, but anyway, I guess maybe I was reading, I don't know what news I was when I was scanning it, but it was an ABC report from Greenpeace, which they had evaluated plastic recycling in America, and they said it was a dead end street because they said it's actually extremely complex, and most of the stuff that goes into the recycling facilities can't actually be recycled in anything useful.
Right.
So very little of it actually winds up getting recycled, and they're looking for all alternatives. And it is kind of, is that karma or something? I don't know what, just to see this where all these environmentalists are preaching about all this recycling stuff, but in reality, you have things like plastic, which, I've got to separate my plastics every week, put out the little bin and everything, plastics and paper, I'm thinking like,
you're required to. Montgomery requires you to.
Montgomery County requires it to. If you were in the People's Republic of Tacoma Park, they actually have like recycling, inspectors or police that go around looking at your recycling to make sure you're doing it correctly and you're actually doing it, So, but where I live, they don't do that. But there is not only are we required to recycle, but on our property tax bill, there's a charge for the recycling, right? Because they can't, that's the only way they can pay for it is that they have to charge us when we voluntarily recycle. And it's hundreds of dollars a year. And I'm like, and it just keeps going up. It's just the whole folly of this is ridiculous. But this is Montgomery County.
I read about 5 years ago that the answer to that was going to end up being put it all in the same trash can. And it looks like that's where it's going. You really want to cut down on landfill use and waste in the environment, put it all in the same trash can, crush it.
I haven't been watching the recycling trucks lately, but I would peer out the window every once in a while. And so you'd have the paper, have the big wheeled bin for paper, and then you have the small bucket for the plastics and stuff like that. And I didn't see like a separate section, that to me, it looked like they were dumping it all in the same thing, so at least when they're picking it up, it seemed to be going in the same, same truck. I guess maybe it gets sorted out when they dump it over.
No, some of those trucks, they have different compartments.
Right.
So,
but it didn't look like they, the recycling guys who are probably earning $15 an hour really cared. Their job was to pick it up.
Right.
I don't think they were card-carrying members of Greenpeace or whatever,
No, I don't think they were.
All right, we're running up against the end. I still even I don't know. Let's let's just talk really quickly about George Santos and John Fetterman. Who go hand in hand, because you mentioned Fetterman and the whole blue dog thing. So if Santos gets expelled from Congress, I don't have a lot of love loss for George Santos, but he hadn't been convicted or anything like that yet. So
Right.
The precedent is set seems to be
It's a little troubling.
that seems to be a bad thing on their part. But the other half of this was this whole thing where he's on Cameo, right? So where you can set a price you can do these little videos and send them to people. And Fetterman completely trolls, Senator Menendez and pays Santos $200 for this cameo to go out to Menendez, and it was hilarious. So my likability on Fetterman, I hate to say it, is increasing.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, he's kind of an off the wall guy, and and he doesn't seem as nuts as many of the rest of them, or as strident. Right. I think the thing is like it looks like he's looking for solutions.
Right.
And I understand that not everybody in the world is going to land where I do on what the solution should be, right? But if we're both genuinely looking, between the two of us, we have a chance of finding a good answer.
Yep. All right. Well, I'll let you wrap it up. I'll give you about a minute and a half.
I was looking on here what you had.
I forgot to put down Sandra Day O'Connor too. Just
Sandra Day O'Connor, first woman on the court, appointed by Reagan. It was kind of a disappointment for conservatives through her career, but I don't think she was the end of the.
There have been worse people on the court picked by conservatives.
Absolutely. I don't. Trump is your nominee. It doesn't matter who endorses Nikki Haley or whatever. Nikki Haley would be a disaster as president, and I think that if she wants to put everybody's names on their social media and collect lists of this and that. There's no way. I do feel bad for Florida State, but in the defense of the college football people, the problem has been that they have had a lot of these games have been not competitive. Like the year LSU won at 2019, they had 40. It was like 49-7 over Oklahoma at the half. Right. So, no one's watching those games. So last year they got lucky. They had two really good games. So I do not blame them for what they did. I think that there's a lot of people in the country, and rightfully so, who say that the champion of the SEC probably belongs in there. It's probably one of the best four teams in the country by definition. Let's see, what else did I say in here? And from what you have here, that's all I see.
All right. And then we'll wrap it up here. Thanks, everyone, for joining us again today. Hope you enjoyed it. Appreciate all the comments from all you guys. It was great to hear from you and have your input. As always, please stay safe and stay well. We need Brian to recover fully.
I'm about to go outside and have a good cough.
Yeah. We'll do that. And please remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone ever tell you otherwise. And God bless America. We're on we won't be back until about 3 weeks. I'm going to be flying back on a plane next week and got something the week after. So we'll take a few weeks off and then be back right after Christmas. So everyone have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. Just have a good and safe holiday. Enjoy it. And we'll see you on the 27th. Thanks a lot, everyone.